Hello, it's time for another episode of Discipleship Today. My name is Bob Benson. I pastor Christ Lutheran Church out in Bemis Point. We've been talking about discipleship and what it is. We know from Matthew 28, verses 19 and 20, that we know that it's a great commission. We've been called to go out and baptize people in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. And then there's that comma there that says, teaching them to obey all I have commanded. And how are we teaching people to obey what Jesus commanded if we don't know the commandments ourselves? We've been walking through them. We're on number 34 today. Commandment number 34 comes from Matthew 20, 26 through 28. And I want to read that for you from the English Standard Version. And I'm going to start. But whoever would be great among you must be your servant. And whoever would be first among you must be your slave. Even as the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many. The whole idea is as becoming like Jesus Christ. We call ourselves Christians. That means little Jesuses. That means that we want to be all about the words and the works of Christ. Here he says it, that we need to be servants, and then he demonstrated it. At the Last Supper, what did he do? He lowered himself to the lowest place in the room, went around the room and washed the disciples' feet. Jesus said we must be a servant. The disciples were in conflict about who among them would be the greatest in heaven in the middle of this. Peter must have seemed to have the inside track, but James and John just made a play for the top spots. And everyone else was fuming about it as this went on. Jesus pointed out in a very Gentile-style attitude towards power and authority that partly is used of the disciples, this Jewish sense of spirituality, as well as the statement of fact. These people were all about status. The Jews were all about being Jewish. The Gentiles were all about Gnosticism, or knowing more than everyone else. The Romans had the power. Nobody in that time was humbling themselves and becoming a servant. You were forced to be a slave or a servant. Nobody, very few people sold themselves into slavery and became bondservants, and they did it out of acts of desperation. Jesus says here, we need to wander into that ourselves. We need to surrender ourselves to becoming servants, to understand the heart of Jesus. And that's my challenge. And it's a challenge in my life too. How do we humble ourselves and serve people? Because that's really what it's all about. We don't work for God, but we partner with him as we serve people. Yeah, and that's an attitude that we all need to have. I'm going to challenge you to check your attitude, check your power, check your status at the door, and become a servant and follow Jesus Christ. So for Discipleship Today, my name is Bob Benson. Thank you for taking the time to watch.